My name is Juliana Nykolaiszyn with the Oklahoma State University Library. Today is Monday, September 26, 2016, and I'm in Wakita, Oklahoma, Grant County, Oklahoma, to interview Linda Wade as part of our Cowboys in Every County Oral History Project. Linda, thank you for joining us today.
You're welcome.
Well, let's learn a little bit more about you. Could you tell me the year you were born and where you were born?
I was born in 1948 in Enid, Oklahoma, which is just south of Grant County. Grant County does not have a hospital at this time, and so that was the closest.
Okay, and tell me a little bit about your parents.
My parents were both raised in this area. My great-grandfather made the Cherokee Strip run in 1893, and my father's family came shortly thereafter and settled in the Wakita, Manchester area of Grant County.
Okay, and when they came to this area, what was their occupation?
They were all farmers. They did some grocery business because of eggs and meat and things like that, but for the most part they were farmers.
Okay, and tell me the names of your parents.
Mary Jane and Leroy Miller are my parents.
Okay, and your grandparents?
Edna and Guy Miller are my father's parents, and Mary Lee and Leonard Long are my mother's parents. My father is still living in Wakita and is 96 years old.
Oh, wow. So tell me how your parents met each other.
After the war, my dad was back sitting in the barber shop, and my mother walked by outside the window, and he said, "Oh, I like that lady," and it went from there.
And when you were born, where did your family live?
They lived here in the Wakita area.
Okay. And did they live in town or on the farm?
On the farm.
Okay. And kind of describe the farm to me. What you remember. What you can recall.
What can I recall? Well, we still live in the, or my father still lives in the second house that he built for the family. Once I was about 5 years old, they built a newer house because they had a couple of more siblings after me, and they needed a larger home, and so they built the final family home. The farm that my great-grandfather homesteaded is actually still in the family as a 100-year or more farm.
And tell me about the schools you attended growing up.
Okay, Wakita grade school and high school is where I graduated in 1966. Then I went to OSU, graduated in 1970, and then I attended a one-year internship at the University Hospital in Oklahoma City and became a medical technologist. I am registered with the American Society of Clinical Pathologists as a registered medical technologist. I just retired about 5 years ago from working several hospitals, and now I have finally taken over the running of the Twister Museum in Wakita, Oklahoma as my after-retirement job.
Well, let's take you all the way back to attending school here in Wakita. Was it a big school? Was it a small school? How many students?
Wakita is a relatively small school in the scope of things. My class was actually the largest in Wakita history, and we had 45 students in our graduating class. And we have just celebrated our 50th reunion this year, and about 3/4 of us were attending, and we did celebrate here in Wakita. So,
were you active in many activities in school?
Just a few, not a whole lot. I was more of the brainiac at that time, going into the science field, and so I didn't do much in sports. I did do, like the plays and things like that, home ec.
And did you always want to attend college? Was it encouraged?
My family has a history of college attendance, and so it was just kind of a given. I became interested in the medical field when I got a microscope for Christmas one year, and it just kind of went from there.
Mm-hmm. And how did you choose Oklahoma State?
Family had gone to OSU prior to my attending. I had family at the time I was going to school, so it was the most comfortable choice, and it did offer the science classes that I needed. So.
And prior to attending OSU, did you spend any time in Stillwater?
Yes, I visited family there quite a bit.
Okay.
So.
What family did you have in Stillwater?
Mostly cousins that
Okay.
were attending the school. And of course my father had been there, many years ago. It was a little bit different after that, but I was the oldest child in our family, so I got to break the ice for the rest of my siblings who went to OSU. Some parts of their lives, some of them moved on, but two out of 4 girls graduated from OSU.
Okay. And so how did you get from Wakita to Stillwater when you were moving in for the first time as a freshman?
The family drove me the first year. I actually had Dad come get me to go home a lot, and so by the next year he let me have a car and because he farmed and didn't have the time to take off to come bring me home every week. So.
And where did you live on campus your first year?
I was in Willard for 4 years.
You were a woman of Willard.
A woman of Willard.
Mm-hmm.
And don't ask me for the cheer song.
So describe your dorm room for me.
Small room, 2 people. I don't know that it had any significance at all.
Did you know your roommate?
No, I had a new roommate every year.
Okay. And when you went to OSU, did you have an idea of what you wanted to major in?
Yes, I was strictly a biological science major the whole way. I did want to get my degree just in case that I didn't like the medical profession. Once I got into it, I could come back and have a stepping stone to another profession if I needed it.
Okay. You were very focused going into college.
Well, for a while anyway.
So
I won't say that my grade point was great when I ended, but yes, I knew where I was starting. I did branch out a little bit. But.
Tell me a little bit about what you remember from your classes.
Well, I had some very hard classes, some pretty easy classes. I had a Saturday class, which I didn't like. I did have one class that I had 3 different teachers in, so you just get used to one teacher and then another one comes in and you have to get used to a new one.
Any professors stand out in your mind?
No, not particularly. Not in the good frame anyway.
Did you work while you were on campus?
No, I had a Regents scholarship my first year, and I worked in the summers on the farm to earn the money to go back in the fall.
Okay.
So, not while I was in school, but yes, I did work.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So now, tell me what you did for fun.
Well, mostly just going out and dating and meeting people.
Mm-hmm. And did you always live in Willard?
Yes.
Okay, so you lived in Willard all 4 years.
All 4 years. Uh-huh.
Okay.
It was the best dorm at that time. I mean, it was had the best prestige at that time.
Mm-hmm.
If you were going to stay in a dorm. Of course, they built a new one shortly after that, but while I was there, it was a good dorm.
Were you involved in any on-campus activities while you were at OSU?
I'm sure I was. I was nominated for a Dairy Princess, one of a group. I didn't win, but I was nominated. I don't know, science, you kept pretty busy with, you know, labs and things. I did run around with a lot of medical students because we studied together a lot. Went to the Hideaway a lot. That's about all I remember. It's been, you know, it's been 50 years. It's been a long time.
It's been a long time. Did you attend many sporting events?
Of course, all the football games, a few of the basketball and wrestling games, yeah. Depend on if you could get a date or not.
Can you kind of tell me how the women dressed when you were in college?
Oh, wool pleated skirts and sweaters was the main. I mean, I remember freshmen shopping to go to school. Mm-hmm. But yeah.
And this is going to sound a little odd, but how'd you get your laundry done?
The basement of Willard.
Mm-hmm.
You went down and did your own. Of course, wool skirts, I'm not sure, had to be dry cleaned, but I don't know. That's where we did laundry, was the basement of Willard.
So you lived in Willard. Did you have curfews?
Yes, we did, definitely.
And at that point, did you still have house mothers?
Yes, we did.
Tell me about your house mother. Did you have any run-ins with your house mother?
No. I was a good girl. I did date a few sorority boys, so I met the house mothers of the, not sorority, fraternities. I ended up marrying a fraternity boy that I met at Stillwater, so.
How'd you meet your husband?
He was actually working on the farm here in Wakita. He was from Little Rock, Arkansas, and is an OSU graduate as well. But we met at here in Wakita and then dated once we got back to school.
That's a small world.
It is.
Do you recall any campus traditions?
Well, homecoming for sure. Mm-hmm. We all did everything we could for homecoming.
Did Willard do decorations out front?
No, I don't think so. Or I didn't participate anyway if they did.
Okay. Did you attend the parade?
Yeah, the parade and the viewing all the fraternity setups and everything. I guess we did have a review, acting comedy review every year. We went to that. I hadn't really thought about school in a long time. So I don't really remember. Not much.
Okay. Okay. Is there a place on campus that you loved to visit, hang out at?
We hung out at the Hideaway pretty much all the time. Sometimes swims, but mostly the Hideaway.
Was that the first time you had pizza?
No. But probably the best. But then again, my husband worked there, so that was, you know, an easy meeting place. He prepped for the morning, you know, pizza making. He made the dough. He did the cleanup of the place and stuff like that. And of course, we all liked the collages on the wall and everything.
You had a good inn.
I did. It worked great.
Did you have a favorite pizza?
Everything.
Everything?
Everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I liked the, you know, eventually, oh gosh, in 2000 or so, Hideaway got the Volkswagens that they painted up, and that was cute. I followed that some.
Were there other places in town you liked to eat? Did you visit the Strip?
We did. There was a place that had a fireplace. What was the name of that? I don't really remember. I know there was a dry cleaner on the Strip, so that's probably where I got my dry cleaning done. But what was on the corner? not good at remembering. Not good at remembering. I was in class all the time.
That's a good thing.
And that's what you, yeah, that's what you remember.
Yeah.
And then the Willard Pond, we spent a lot of time sitting around the Willard Pond with guys, of course, but yeah.
I see a theme.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. I didn't have a lot of free time unless I was on a date.
Well, you know, it is college.
Yeah.
What are your memories of the student union?
It was quite a bit smaller when I was there. The bookstore was your, you know, biggest memory. I did spend a lot of time on 4th floor in the, there was not a lounge, but a place where everybody met to have sodas and stuff. I guess there was groups kind of on 4th floor, and everybody had their own little group that they met. And that's about it. There were some good shops down below. Some of it is, you know, going back afterwards too. What I remember from 50 years ago, maybe being 60 or 70, not 60 or 70, 40 or 30, that's when I was going the wrong way. But yeah, just when you went back afterwards, you notice things changing, and I'm not sure, you know, when it all happened.
Was the bowling alley still in the union when you were going to school there, in the basement?
I don't know if it was or not. I didn't ever go bowling. We had to get our IDs on the 2nd floor. I remember that. So.
Did you spend any time in the library?
A lot of time in the library. You learned how to use the card files. There wasn't any automation at that time. But yeah, of course, being in the medical, you had to look a lot up for your classes and things. Maybe not as much time as I should have, but I did.
When you think back on some of the classes you took, what buildings were your classes in? Any stand out for you?
Well, I take a humanities class. That was on the east side of the campus, and then most of them were in the science in the center behind the library. But I mean, I don't remember the names of them, but what's the one they tore down?
Oh.
I had one class in it, and then my humanities was in a huge big, no, it wasn't humanities, it was something, introduction to something. Where if you went every day, you got an A, and I went every day and got a C, it was terrible. I said, how could I do that? I think they got me mixed up with somebody else. But anyway, that's where the Israeli war, the 12-day war, was when I was in that class. I remember that.
Okay.
That's all. I don't remember much about college. I'm sorry. You picked the wrong alumni.
Well, you were.
I got a good start. That's what happened.
You graduated in 1970, and so you're kind of on campus during an interesting time period. We're at the tail end of the 1960s. What was the campus culture like while you were attending?
There was a lot of Vietnam War stuff going on. People not wanting to go or discussing it. So that was kind of a critical topic at that time.
Did you notice any protests happening on campus?
Not a lot. Mostly people would not be encouraged by it, but they didn't really make any concrete together protests. But there was a lot of talking in the discussions that were kind of protesting. But I think it was mostly more of the, you know, I don't want to go over there and die kind of protest.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they weren't, most of ours were not anti-American at any point, because Oklahoma was pretty patriotic, but it was just the fear of dying, I think, was a lot of it.
Well, you mentioned that your father eventually got you a car.
Mm-hmm.
What did he get you?
An old blue Chevy. I drove my grandmother's 55 Oldsmobile for a little while, and then I got a blue Chevy. And then I went to a red Chevy. I think I got a new, periodically new, faster cars.
Well, you mentioned that you went on many, many dates.
Well,
several dates.
Several days.
That's several dates. Where would you go for a typical date outside of the Hideaway or maybe Swims?
The Sonic, drive in and sit in the car, and that was probably the most popular at that time.
Okay.
In my, you know, if you don't have money, which you didn't a lot when you were in college, that was the cheapest date you could go on, was drive the car. And a lot of times it was my car. The guys didn't have cars, so we would go to Sonic.
Well, as you were leading up to graduation, did you have an idea of what you wanted to do with your life?
Oh, at that point I knew I was going to medical technology school. That was, you know, the whole focus of the 4 years of college.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't know, you know, where exactly I would go. But I did, there were only like 3 or 4 schools in Oklahoma that could, you could graduate with medical technology.
Mm-hmm.
So I chose the biggest and the closest, and actually got in.
Mm-hmm.
So, but several of the people that I went to OSU with actually got into the same class as I did in school. And there was about 10 or 11 in our medical technology school.
Wow.
At that point, yeah.
Well, tell me about graduation day. What do you remember?
A lot of people graduated.
Did your parents come up?
Yes, of course, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you have the whole cap and gown thing, and I got a little plastic whatever booklet with my diploma in it. So,
Where was the ceremony held?
in the stadium.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So
I was already focused on my next step, or getting out, and it got harder. You know, each progressive year got harder and harder. So
you finished up your schooling in Oklahoma City for it took you about a year?
Mm-hmm. Took a year.
Okay. And then where did you go after that?
I stayed in University Hospital in Oklahoma City for a couple of years, and then I got married, and we spent a year and a half in Europe working and traveling over there. And then I came home to Little Rock, Arkansas in the bicentennial year and spent a couple of years there, and then we moved back to Oklahoma to start farming. And so I worked in Enid, Cherokee, Wakita, Enid, all the different hospitals.
So you were commuting out of Wakita?
Most of the time,
Most
yeah.
of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And
it's about an hour any direction you go, but it's pretty easy, pretty light traffic.
And in general, tell me what your career entailed. What was your role? What did you do?
As a medical technologist, you would basically draw blood from any patients or outpatients, and then you run all the testing on them, and you advise doctors on the results that you obtained. My very first job in OU Medical Center or University Hospital, was not computerized. They got a computer the first year I was there. They got a brand new computer. It was about a room-sized computer, and it was underneath the main lab, and they had to run wires up from the computer room to the lab to run our instruments with. So that was quite a new challenge, was you know, learning how to use a computer on medical instruments. I had a computer course at OSU, but at that time you were still using punch cards, and it was quite, I mean, it took a whole year to make one program at OSU, and then to jump right into university and get their first automated machines was pretty interesting.
So you were right there with the change of technology?
Right. Yes.
Wow.
It was, yeah, amazing. So it was really the first step in automating all the labs, and now every instrument that you run is automated to a certain degree. And it's almost a paperless system now in hospitals. So every couple of years you had to learn a new system, and that was quite a challenge too, to not grow up with computers and then to have it the main focus of your job. It was you know, quite a bit of learning.
So was the ultimate goal to move back to this area, or?
No, at the time I didn't have any preferences to moving back to this area. Just kind of what came around. But you know, knowing my husband farmed when I met him was probably a pretty good indicator. But I enjoyed spending a few years overseas too, and we still travel a lot, so that's a good benefit.
Did you have time to help out on the farm in between your day job?
No, I tried not to. Once I became a full-time medical technologist, I tried not to help too much. But I, you know, you still take me to this field and, you know, chauffeur me back to this place or whatever. But yeah, I still understood everything that was going on, but I didn't work as much as I did growing up. I drove tractor and combine and trucks and pickups and the whole shebang, but yeah. But indoors air conditioning was a lot better than outdoors on the farm.
Did you have children?
No.
Okay.
No kids.
So you had no extra help for the farm?
No extra help for the farm, right. And just this last weekend, we had a celebration in Wakita. I was in charge of the bounce house, and I learned why I didn't regret not having kids. Now, grandkids, I would like grandkids. I, you know, don't mind pampering my nieces and nephews, and great nieces and nephews now, but no, I didn't miss having kids.
So you moved back to this area, and I kind of want you to tell me how Wakita has changed over the years.
Oh, well, when I was in high school and living here, there was like a farmhouse on every other quarter or so. So quite a few of the farm community was here. As we have progressed over the years, the farms have gotten larger and larger, and the families, you know, once the older generation passes away, fewer people are able to farm because of the economy. It's just quite an expensive profession, actually, and you don't, you put everything you make back into the farm, and so the farm community became smaller and smaller. So, you know, Wakita still is a major farming town. It's just we have big family farms now that have just taken over as each family left. The families that are still here incorporate the farms that were there. So there's a farm every 5 or 6 miles now rather than quarters. So it has gotten smaller.
How has downtown changed over the years?
Not a whole lot of change. We've lost a few stores that we had, but we still have the newspaper and the grocery store and a post office and bank and city office, and so that's the major businesses, the co-ops. We once had a movie theater, and we once had a laundromat. We actually had a clothing store at one time, and we had 2 grocery stores at some point, and they consolidated down. But the grocery store now incorporates what used to be the drugstore also, so they combined the 2 stores. So we have the basic amenities. We still have to go out of town to get the entertainment and the clothes, things like that. But you know, you can survive in Wakita pretty easily.
When you go to town, what town do you go to?
Generally Enid, because that's where I worked.
Mm-hmm.
And so you did all your shopping while you were there before you came home.
Mm-hmm. Well, so. I can't have a discussion with you about Wakita without talking about the movie Twister. So, especially since we're in the Twister Museum. So, could you talk to me about how the movie Twister impacted the town?
It was a great impact on the town. A couple of years prior to the movie coming, Wakita was hit with a big hailstorm, like softball-size hail. And so we lost all our roofs, our cars, everything. And it also happened in June, so we lost our harvest income as well. And so at that point, the town was pretty down, and we had a lot of buildings at that point that were empty, and being empty, they were uninsurable. And so with that loss of income and buildings that were uninsurable, they didn't get repaired. So the town, a couple of years later, was in the process of urban renewal, so to speak, tearing down some of these buildings that hadn't been fixed. And so the movie came in and said, let us do it for you. And so they did $100,000 worth of demolition work for the town, used it in their movie, and then cleaned it up for us. So that was a major benefit to the town. And then, of course, the inflow of people. At that point, they bought things from our grocery stores, our filling stations. They rented facilities. They leased property. I mean, after 2 years of low income, then to have all this come in, it was a great benefit to the town. Pretty much everyone was okay with it. There were a few people that were depressed about the tear down of the buildings. Of course, it was going to happen anyway, but it's sad to see some of your older buildings torn down, and that was probably the most adverse part of the movie coming. They let everyone in town become extras in the movie, and so they fed us and paid us, and we got to meet all the stars and everything. So everybody enjoyed that. So, you know, anyone in town had the opportunity to have some benefit from the movie if they wanted to. If they didn't, it was their own decision at that point. But they were in Wakita from April through August, and so quite a lengthy amount of time. So you got to know people from Hollywood. It was kind of interesting talking taxes and houses and cars and all the usual stuff growing up. But it's been 20 years now, so it's still amazing the number of people, a lot of Oklahoma people especially, that the movie made an impact on. But we get visitors here in Wakita. Well, the museum's open April through August, and we have daily visitors. which is still amazing after 20 years. You wouldn't think that, but visitors to the museum come from all over the world. I mean, we'd have visitors from every continent, even Antarctica. We've had someone visit. So you wouldn't. Wakita is more or less out of the way for visitors. You don't come to Wakita unless you're intending to come to Wakita, and so to have them come here is really super. And of course that impacts the economy a little bit as well. And for 20 years, we had no idea that it would last this long. Even in making the museum, Warner Brothers said, "Oh, you'll have visitors for a couple of years," and that's the normal movie impact. But I'm sure they were thinking thousands of visitors. But nevertheless, I get a dozen or more every day, and that's 100% more than we had before movie. So
how did the idea for the museum come about?
The garden club of the town started it, and because Warner Brothers said you'll have visitors for a couple of years, we put up a walking trail and a museum, and we felt like if they came all the way to Wakita, it would be nice for them to have something to see and visit, and so we were counting on the 2 years. But now 20 years later, there's a lot fewer volunteers to the museum, and there's a lot fewer people that actually live through the movie to volunteer. So it's a challenge now to keep it open.
And so this is your post-retirement.
My post-retirement job. Myself and another lady, the postmistress of town, retired a few years ago also, so the two of us keep it running April through August, and then we kick back and then relax in the winter time. But we still make appointments and things during the winter. We just don't keep it open because the utilities get a little high in the winter time for sure, because there's tall ceilings. But yeah, we have actually lots of storm chasers. I think the movie has really elevated the profession of meteorology to the point where they have trouble getting into meteorology school. You really have to fight for your class position to get into meteorology. And a large part of that is because of the movie. And it's the best tornado movie ever made. I'm sure of that. The storm chasers all tell me that. I mean, Sharknado, go figure. But they did try to make the movie as accurate as they could. It's still a movie, and but it is a great movie. And storm chasers, especially the ones that take people on vacations to find storms, they come here a lot. If the weather's fair, well, then they come here. If there's a tornado somewhere, then they're out there. But they do visit here a lot, and that's where I get a lot of my foreign visitors. China, Japan, Australia, a lot of those. They have little tastes of tornadoes in their countries, but they don't get the big tornadoes and the number of tornadoes that we have in the United States. I guess because there's, I don't know, smaller countries, different heating and cooling. I'm not sure why, but they do like to come to the U.S. and chase.
What's your favorite piece in the museum?
Oh, I have the Dorothy from the movie, the one that got beat up. It has character. There are other Dorothys out there, but they're all pretty. But mine's the one with character. And going through making a movie like this gives you a whole new perspective of the movie industry, to see how much work they have to go through to make each detail correct. And now the computer, here again, they do CGI a lot more than they did 20 years ago. So I'm sure it's all different than what it was then. But it sure did open your eyes to go through one and see everything they had to do. And we were only one area of 5 in Oklahoma used for filming, as well as Iowa and Hollywood. And Wakita's ambulance actually got to go to Hollywood for retakes. So we're the star. Wakita Water Tower is the star. Now, Bill Paxton was actually our favorite movie star while he was here. He's from Texas originally, so Oklahoma was pretty much at home for him. He showed up in boots and jeans and brought a football and played catch with everybody, signed autographs, took pictures and things. He donated a pinball machine to the museum. He donated the football to the museums. So we have lots of his autographs. Everybody else was nice, but he was just particularly outstanding.
When you're watching the movie, can you see where you were an extra? Can you tell where?
Most of my parts were just off screen. You know, here they are walking down the street, and I would be in the next scene that was cut. But yeah, one of my scenes is actually on there, but it's pretty much we're a little dot in the background. But yeah, they were filming in Wakita for a month and a half for about 15 minutes of the movie. So they did cut a lot of stuff. But we were fortunate, being 20 years ago, they let us take home movies. And so we have a big CD of about 3 different people's, or DVD, 3 different people's home videos, mostly school teachers who were off for the summer. And so we do have pictures of all the stuff they built and tore down that didn't end up in the movie. But for the movie, we were actually 5 blocks of sidewalk to sidewalk head-high debris for a while. So it was like a real tornado. They had armed guards around the town to keep people from coming in and getting hurt. I mean, it was the real thing at that point. They were trying very, very hard to make it realistic.
Wow, who knew it would have such an impact 20 years later?
Right. It's amazing. And still, we get phone calls all the time to make appointments while we're closed. I had someone from San Antonio day before yesterday. Have someone from Canada coming tomorrow. And those are appointments, you know, since I'm closed, but yeah.
Well, thinking back at your time at OSU, how did attending college in Stillwater impact your life?
Well, coming from a small town, the fact that I went to a larger university broadened my view of people and of the world. When you're growing up, you really don't have much knowledge of what's going on out in the real world, and so attending a college is definitely a plus in that aspect. It helps you meet people, makes you open up. I was pretty shy growing up, and so it helped me converse with people, and you have to learn a lot of different different cultures, different professions, all this stuff. When you go to college, you just you learn a whole lot more.
Have you kept in touch with any of your classmates, roommates, fellow medical school students?
Mostly just I've kept in touch with people from Wakita that went to school with me. There were several Wakita students that went to OSU, and so we were pretty close. We would ride home together, share rides and everything, so that definitely kept us closer together. But as far as people I met, not too many of them. There's a few. But it just seems like life keeps you from doing anything more than Christmas cards, and now internet, Facebook has made it a lot easier to connect with people that you knew then.
Have you been back to Stillwater much since you graduated?
After I came back to Oklahoma, we went quite a bit. Now that I've gotten older, I don't do as much as I used to. We do go to Eskimo Joe's often. And I do get my t-shirts from Eskimo Joe's. But yeah, so we go back to Stillwater some, but not as much as we did, you know, when we were younger.
Uh-huh.
Now, if I'd had kids, probably they would have gone to school there, so I would be back more. But since I didn't, but I do have a niece that went to school there. Actually, 2 nieces, and I have a great nephew going to school there now, and so yeah, we go back a little more now than we did.
It's a good excuse for cheese fries.
Yes. Exactly.
Well, what advice would you give students today?
Oh gosh. Go to school, pay attention, but have a good time, I suppose. Get your degree. I think going to college is pretty important. But take advantage of doors that you need to open once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not always what you know, but who you know. You know, make some friends.
Mm-hmm. It seems that many OSU alums feel very loyal to the school.
Mm-hmm.
What is it about Oklahoma State that sparks such loyalty?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I don't know, I guess. I'm pretty sure every college student is pretty loyal to their alum. It'd be nice if the football team really got better, I guess. I think we beat OU a couple of years while I was in school, and that probably really helped make the loyalty, I guess you'd say, because a lot of my fellow classmates went to OU also,
mm-hmm.
and so we kept up a rivalry going all the time. Oh, but I don't know.
Do you see?
OSU was a good school, gave me a good education, so, you know, you're just loyal.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned that there are several OSU alums in Grant County.
Mm-hmm.
Do you find that a lot of folks in this part of the state go to OSU, or maybe more Alva, or NOC Enid, or?
Well, in my growing up, my era, more of us went to OSU because it was farming related in this area. Now that farms have become larger, it's not quite as important for the younger kids to go to OSU because they're not going to be involved in farming. But anyone who is in farming definitely needs the college education because everything is computer operated, and you have to understand all the government programs, and it takes a good intelligent mind to do farming in today's generation. So most of the farmers that I know have gone to OSU now. And so the college has definitely helped the state of Oklahoma as far as farming has gone. They've helped organic farmers. They've helped in the setting up corporations and businesses and learning how to do barcodes and how to promote your industry and everything. So, you know, it's definitely been an impact on the farming community.
Mm-hmm. And that's definitely still a big part of Wakita.
Is almost all of Wakita. If you're farming, you're, yeah. If you live in Wakita and your parents are here, you're a farm family.
You know, I noticed you still have your post office. Are your schools still in operation here?
We lost our school about 5 years ago. We consolidated with Medford, which is about 15 miles away.
Okay.
That is not quite as big a farming, but a large part of it is also farming community.
Okay. And how many grain elevators do y'all have in town?
We have 2.
Okay.
We have a farmer's co-op and then a commercial Johnston's Grain out of Enid.
Well, looking back on everything, you're still in Wakita. You're here at the museum. What keeps you here in this part of Oklahoma doing this post-retirement work?
Well, I get to meet a lot of fun people, and so that's probably the most enjoyable part of running the museum. The fact that my father is still in the area, so I'm here for him a lot. I don't know how much longer I will keep the museum open. I'm looking for someone else to help me out, but you know, as long as I'm here, I'll have it. But someday I'd really like to retire, I think.
Well, Linda, it's been great talking with you today. Is there anything else you'd like to add that we haven't covered today? What have we missed?
My memory isn't very good anymore, you know. But when you hit almost 70, it's like, okay, you remember. I can remember 20 years. 50 years is another story.
Well, we appreciate your time.
Thank you. I enjoyed growing up on a farm. I mean, it was quite an experience to be outdoors all the time and have siblings to play with all the time, and learning how to run equipment. I learned to drive in the middle of a field. You know, it's a whole new, different life than growing up in a city. That's for sure.
Very different.
So it's a good benefit in this day and age. There's very little crime in Wakita. You know, we don't have excellent health care, but we do have a nursing home that is very good, and we have all the basic amenities, so it's a good place to live. Grant County.
Here we go. That's a good way to end. Thank you, Linda.
You bet.